Peace FM 104.3. Good to meet you.
Mimi sa bibi Professor Bokpin sisi yeshenia minority nekana over 60 billion a loss by the Bank of Ghana. Now governor should resign with his two deputies. What would it solve?
There has to be consequences for actions and inactions with this magnitude. As I said, it's not the first time. We've seen it across the two.
Prof Bokpin,
I'm saying that there has to be consequences for actions and inactions with such magnitude. Sometimes you don't even need to be advised. And probably, I'm sure, if the governors at some point, maybe the optimal time to have resigned was long ago, but they sold their birthright. And I'm saying this also because we have seen it, the data is clear across the two main political parties. So in this matter, there is none bully. No, not one. Not the NDC, not the NPP. We've seen it. But what happened in 2002 is one of a kind. It's one of a kind. It's an outlier. That raises serious concern. Beyond the politics of it, it undermines confidence in the central bank itself. It undermines confidence in our financial system. We can make the argument to say, policy-wise, the central bank is solvent, but this level of losses seriously incapacitate the central bank from performing its function with a certain moral authority in the market. Remember, the essence of regulation is not the same as holding a hammer, where you treat everything else as a nail. The essence of regulation is to generate trust. Trust is more obvious in its absence. The market value of trust is more elevated in its absence than when it's there. So that is what it will do. So it has implications for the credibility of monetary policy. It has implications for confidence in our financial system, because the central bank is a key institution. Look, Maminka Simbinchro. Hello.
Meet you.
The central bank is the lender of last resort. Let's see how the IMF, and I have issue with the IMF in this matter. Why am I saying so? The total external debt of Ghana at the end of 2002, near $30.5 billion. Out of this, the multilateral debt was around $8.8 billion. Multilateral debt near what Ghana owed to the IMF, the World Bank, and the other multilateral institutions, near $8.8 billion. Only the IMF catcher.
Almost today.
Almost say, almost a lender of last resort. Almost debt, is not up for restructuring. In the haircut, scissors now come more.
I see.
In other words, the IMF was mindful in protecting its balance sheet, because they considered themselves, together with the World Bank and the others, they were lenders of last resort, and that as lenders of last resort, their balance sheet should be preserved. But Master Review, the Bank Ghana, our central bank, Bank of Ghana, is also the lender of last resort. But the same principle didn't apply.
Inti Bank of Ghana, could they have done anything differently in terms government say yepisika ade ebumaino on compete we can say yampini?
The central bank had options. Your ability to enforce that reasonably matters most for your professional judgment. If you fail to do that, there are several reasons why one may fail or the other. We can look at those reasons. The anti-Americans and said, by so doing, they compromise their operational independence. And the result of that is what we are seeing. We said this long ago. You see, in as much as, sometimes there's a saying, I don't know whether it's appropriate, that whilst we advise the cat, we must also advise the sinking fish. Right? In all of these things, you can't take the government out of it. The government is a big elephant in the room. Okay, this is what they have done to the central bank. Okay, and we said it long ago that a time will come when we will say how the central bank, together with the government, messed up our financial system. This is the result. Matter, what we are seeing on the books of the central bank is a true reflection of what this economy has gone through. It's a true reflection of what households have gone through. The impact you see on the balance sheet of the central bank is a reflection of the impact on the balance sheet of households, private sector. Now, you see the losses on the books of Bank of Ghana that huge because of its exposure to the central bank. Okay, so
now,
we can look at that from several angles.
I see.
You will see that certainly it's not something, I'm not sure the governor of Bank of Ghana is happy having this on his CV. I'm very sure.
Now, in your agreement with the minority that the Bank of Ghana's governor and his two deputies should resign, would you say that picketing is the way out? Is that the only way? Is that they say 21 days ultimatum. If you don't resign, we'll picket.
My position
would
is
occupy Bank of Ghana. What do you make of it?
Yeah, my position is different from the minority. I'm not doing this in support of their position.
Well, but it's just that it aligns. You both think that they should go.
I have made this point long ago. Okay, from professional point of view.
Sure.
Okay, and the rest of them. But I think what this will lead us to, given that between the two main political parties, there's nobody, no, not one. It will lead us to a national conversation that helps us to insulate and preserve certain national institutions. Is very important from political capture because they can put you there the next time. But it could happen to you. If you don't want it to happen to you, you will resign and say that, you know what, I care about my professional competence. This is not how things are done. I am leaving. In fact, that will send a strong signal because all of us, we failed to make the right call on the government to cut expenditure. Matter, this whole thing could have been, we could have minimized it. It was very clear to us that government needed to cut key expenditure, cut that wasteful expenditure, preserve fiscal space. You would have protected the balance sheet of the central bank because it got to a point the central bank had to make a difficult decision, and I sympathize with them. What was that decision? They either allowed the regime to collapse and the economy developing into a full-blown crisis, or they will compromise their integrity, operational independence to sustain the government on its balance sheet. The result of that is the losses we are counting right now. Now, let me say this quickly. You know, the debt restructuring was a prior action. This is what happened. Because the government, again, didn't do consultation to build consensus around this. So there were serious pushbacks. So the first round of the domestic debt restructuring that government did, government claimed victory, but it was not victory because the eligible bonds was around $137 billion. At the end of the day, we had made exemptions and all of that. So we only restructured just 85% of 98 billion. Essentially, out of the universe of eligible bonds, of 137, we had only restructured around 83 billion cedis. So we knew that government wasn't done. There was a cocoa bill, 8.1 billion at the end of 2022. I'm using 2022 end date figures. Then there was also the local component of the dollar-denominated bonds, around $800 million. There was the pension. Okay, you see that they are inviting the pensions to participate.
Exactly.
That is around 29.2 billion cedis. Then there was Bank of Ghana's exposure. You look at the composition. The central bank's exposure at the end of 2022 was 77.6 billion cedis. This is the level of exposure.
I see.
This is too much. Okay? One can sympathize with the central bank that, look, they have to bend back and all of that, but there should be consequences. Okay, and then look at it this way. Because the government didn't make significant progress with the debt restructuring, the domestic, and if you look at the outlook from the external debt restructuring, both external bilateral, external commercial, there is a limit to how far you can impose haircuts on the creditors. So at the end of the day, this was what happened.
Prof, let me ask.
Using the central bank's balance sheet as a balancing item. So the differences, more or less, they loaded it on the central bank.
From
Peace FM 104.3. Good to meet you.